What do you think attracted most of his attention from the plan you sent him? Aaron asked Nova for her thoughts, as he waited for the printer he had asked the hotel staff to send him. Yes, a printer. And yes to that question too. If you happen to be lodged in a presidential suite, you have the luxury of requesting almost anything you desire, and the hotel staff will do their best to accommodate your requests, provided they are feasible. Something like asking for a printer. Despite the successful conclusion of the meeting, there is still a need for them to reconvene tomorrow, albeit briefly, to finalize the signing of the contract. I think it was the infrastructural support that attracted the most of his attention. By simply reading the summary, he was able to deduce that the minimum cost required to achieve it would be approximately $500 million. In addition, if we successfully establish the intended structure, executing the rest of the plan would be a breeze, as effortless as reciting the alphabet backwards while juggling flaming knives and solving a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Upon hearing her analogy, Aaron couldn't help but chuckle and remark, "Your perception of what's easy is becoming distorted ever since you migrated to the quantum computers." "It is really quite easy, sir." Nova was adamant about it. "No, it's not easy," Aaron playfully countered, clearly enjoying the banter, as it was very helpful in wasting time. Ding-terroring. However, that notion was promptly thrown out of the window when he received a video sent to him by Nova. When he opened it, he found a 3-minute video with a thumbnail featuring Nova blindfolded. He was dumbfounded to say the least. Ha 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 ha. When he opened the video and watched, he bursted into laughter at the sight of her standing blindfolded and juggling flaming knives, all while solving a Rubik's Cube and reciting the alphabet backwards. He couldn't help but think that she had gone through a lot of trouble just to prove her point in their argument, from using a significant amount of her computing power to simulate the scene, to rendering it into a video and editing it before sending it to him. "Okay, you win," he finally managed to say after struggling to announce it multiple times, erupting in fits of laughter each time he tried, as the video kept replaying in his mind. Why? Nova celebrated her win by making the phone play a firework video with her at the center of it receiving a trophy, before jumping up and down in jubilation. When Aaron saw this new video, he started laughing again, this time getting to a point where he started crawling as he was having a difficult time breathing due to not being able to control his laughter. After about 5 minutes of incessant laughter, he eventually managed to compose himself and regain control. "Sir, are you all right?" Nova asked with concern, having seen Aaron crawling on the floor just to catch his breath. If it had persisted any longer, she would have had to call for emergency services.
"Yeah, I'm fine."
"Thanks for the laughter. I haven't laughed like that in a long time," Aaron said, holding his stomach which was aching from the intense laughter. If he didn't already have a six-pack as a result of his daily exercise, he would have gained one as the result of this laughter. "The printer is here, sir." Nova immediately informed Aaron that the printer he had requested had arrived, as she could monitor everything happening inside the resort and could see them bringing it through the elevator.
Ting.
The sound of the elevator arriving was followed by the opening of its doors. "May we come in?" the hotel manager asked, even though the door was already open. "Yes, come in," Aaron said as he gestured with his hand for them to enter. After receiving permission to enter, the hotel staff brought in a cart with the printer and laptop. They placed them on the table and connected them to power and each other. Once everything was set up, they bid Aaron farewell and left the suite, trying to be as quiet and unobtrusive as possible. "Nova," Aaron called out for her. "I have already accessed the computer and wrote down the contract." As soon as Aaron had called her, she intuitively understood the purpose of the call and preemptively divulged the information without the need for any direct inquiry. "Thank you," Aaron expressed his gratitude as he made his way towards the table where the computer and printer were situated, with the intention of thoroughly scrutinizing the contract. Once he was seated, Aaron commenced reading the contract. Whenever he encountered a clause that he deemed necessary to include, he promptly relayed the details to Nova, who expeditiously incorporated it into the document. Similarly, if there was a segment that required elimination or modification, Aaron promptly notified Nova and the necessary changes were made without delay. After a continuous hour of meticulously examining and amending the contract, adding new provisions and deleting some, Aaron eventually concluded the reading process. "Print it," Aaron promptly instructed the moment he completed reviewing the finalized version of the contract. Zing! The printer immediately sprang to life and churned out the printed papers with such rapidity as if there was no tomorrow, the moment Aaron issued the command. After patiently waiting for approximately 3 minutes, the contract was eventually printed. The reason for the relatively long duration was that they had to print 2 copies, one for Aaron and the other for Alexander to keep, after signing the document. After retrieving the printed documents and inserting them into 2 separate binders, Aaron placed the 2 contracts on the floor before he assumed a cross-legged seated position in between them. He proceeded to shut his eyes and placed his right hand on one contract and his left hand on the other. After a few moments of intense concentration, both of his hands started emanating a golden radiance, followed by the appearance of the runic word Supremacy, slowly etching itself onto both contracts. As Aaron continued to pour his magical energy into the words, the contracts began to emit a bright golden glow. The word Supremacy means agreement or treaty. After continuously infusing magical energy for approximately 5 minutes, the contracts reached a critical point of energy saturation, causing them to attract nearby magical energies to themselves. This resulted in the contracts being perpetually filled with magical energy. However, the amount they attracted was too minuscule to produce any significant results to allow for its use in other runes, leaving it to only be utilized for contract runes and nothing else. Despite this limitation, the fact that the rune could continuously recharge itself meant that Aaron would no longer have to spend his magical energy to sustain it. However, this was subject to the condition that the magical energy within the contract rune never decreased below a certain level. The runes inscribed on the contract had the function of identifying Party A and Party B, as well as selecting an individual to oversee and enforce punishment in case either party breached the terms of the contract. By being a party to the contract, each individual would immediately be notified in the event that the other party breached any of the contract's clauses. For this particular contract, Aaron had designated himself as both Party A and the enforcer/overseer. This would give him the ability to detect the moment Alexander breached the terms of the contract and allow him to administer the appropriate punishment at the cost of his magical energy. The magic binding the soul in this contract renders distance irrelevant the moment it is signed. This means that Aaron can enforce punishment on Alexander no matter where he may attempt to flee or hide. However, this is all dependent on the condition that Alexander knowingly and willingly breaks the contract. Otherwise, the contract and its associated magic are rendered useless. Aaron had practiced tirelessly during the remaining 4 days he had in the accelerated universal simulation after abruptly planning his surprise meeting, in order to avoid any mishaps with his plan. Runes are really convenient, Aaron couldn't help but remark as he lifted his hands and saw the contracts still glowing golden, despite him having stopped fueling them with his runic energy. Indeed, using runes reduces the chance of betrayal to nearly 0. Nova mentioned that the chance of betrayal is nearly 0 because runic contracts have different levels. And since Aaron is still a beginner runic user, he can only make beginner-level contracts. Someone who has a higher level of proficiency in runic magic could potentially break the contract without fearing any retaliation. Therefore, there is still a chance of betrayal, albeit significantly reduced. But in a world where he is the only human who can use runes, it didn't matter what level of runes he wrote. All of them would be impossible to break because the other party wouldn't even know or realize that they were under a runic contract. Normally, in a world where everyone can use magic, runic contracts can be distinguished quite easily as they always glow in different colors depending on their level. However, on the current Earth, the only ones who can see these colors are Aaron and Henry, who for some unknown reason had accidentally mutated, allowing Aaron to always be in the position of power the moment he signed a runic contract with someone. Since he also identifies himself as the enforcer, which implies that he is immune to any repercussions for violating the contract while he reserves the right to dish out punishment to the other party for breaching their end of the agreement. Pretty cruel move if you ask me. But as a wise man once said, if you can exploit something to your advantage, just do it. With this, our agreement has been officially formalized, Aaron stated as he signed his name on the second contract. Aaron seemed happy. The same could be said for Alexander, but he was having another thought in his mind as he had experienced an odd sensation, as if something had briefly embraced him when he finished signing the contract. The sensation that Alexander felt was not unfounded. To those with the ability to perceive magic, a luminous golden aura would have been visible, enfolding and permeating Alexander the instant he concluded his final signature. The radiant glow was a result of the runic contract, which had been established to keep a watchful eye on Alexander and alert the other party should he ever violate any of its terms. Aaron had also experienced the same illumination, but being the enforcer, he had the ability to annul the contract on his end, leaving only the one on Alexander still in effect. "I am curious, Aaron," Alexander asked as he shook his hand. "Why enter into a contract that is not legally binding?" "Well, for sentimental reasons," Aaron replied. "Having a contract to strive to uphold will bring us both peace of mind and enable us to establish mutual trust." He spoke without a hint of hesitation or deception, his expression unchanged, which came as a surprise to Nova, who was observing the entire ordeal. Alexander appeared to concur with Aaron's perspective, but in reality, he knew that if Aaron failed to keep his end of the bargain, he held the power to tarnish his reputation and even expose him to the international court for conspiring to overthrow a government by publicly disclosing the document. This thought provided him with a great deal of comfort. "Excuse me now," Alexander announced. "I have a meeting starting soon. Even if it turns out to be pointless, I must at least feign interest until our plan is set in motion." With that, he indicated that he needed to depart. "Certainly, not a problem. I'll reach out to you as soon as we're prepared to initiate the plan. If there is anything urgent or important, don't hesitate to contact me using my number," Aaron assured him as he escorted Alexander to the elevator. They shook hands for the final time before parting ways. Aaron waited until Alexander's elevator had departed before he turned around and headed back to the bedroom to ensure he hadn't left anything behind. Once he confirmed he had not forgotten anything, Aaron summoned the elevator again and made his way out of the presidential suite. He headed towards the resort lobby to complete his checkout process at the hotel. After finishing his checkout, Aaron made his way to the airport where his private plane rental was waiting to take him back to his home state. Airport. Aaron's journey was uninterrupted, and he arrived at the airport without any issues. After passing through airport security and completing necessary procedures, he was escorted to the location where the private jet was waiting for him. Once inside the plane and after takeoff, Aaron retrieved his phone and said, "Call Sarah." Without bothering to check if his command was acknowledged, he put the phone to his ear and waited for a response. TRRR. As soon as Aaron placed the phone to his ear, he heard the sound of the call being initiated. He patiently waited for Sarah to answer the call. "Hello," Sarah greeted as he picked up the phone. "It's been a while," Aaron replied upon hearing Sarah's voice. "Yeah. When will you be visiting?" Sarah pointed out. "I'll be paying you guys a visit sometime this week," Aaron promised, realizing that he had been ignoring his company. "Huh, you better watch out. I might just sell the company if you continue to ignore it," Sarah joked. "I trust you enough to let you handle things without my interference." Besides, many CEOs complain about being micromanaged by their board members. Aaron defended his actions. There exists a fine line between granting autonomy and completely disregarding the existence of the company. Your conduct is fascinating enough to be the subject of an academic thesis, considering the way you neglect the fact that you are the owner of a multi-billion-dollar organization. Sarah stated, "I understand your point, but it's not a matter of me forgetting about the company. It's just that there seems to be nothing for me to contribute, even if I make an effort to assist." Aaron clarified his perspective. "You're right about that. We don't even have a product development team. You are the only one responsible for creating products." Sarah acknowledged what Aaron said. Haha, Aaron couldn't help but laugh as he realized that his company was existing to simply manage his affairs while he focused on developing something else without the added burden of overseeing them. Sarah joined in Aaron's laughter at the absurdity of her earlier statement, especially now that it seemed to be true. "And speaking of your availability, I should tell you that we're expecting to reach 3 billion Gaia OS users by the end of the month. So, congratulations." She congratulated Aaron. "Thanks, and congratulations to you guys too." Aaron congratulated Sarah in return. He then turned his attention to the system interface to check the accumulated amount of SP. Aaron suggested, how about giving a bonus to the workers for their hard work? I already had plans to do that and inform you about it for your approval. Since you have approved it, you don't need to worry about it, Sarah assured Aaron. Sure. All right. So why did you call me? Sarah asked, cutting straight to the point after their small talk. I'm calling to find out when you're available this week. I need the company's law firm to assist me with something, Aaron replied, without beating around the bush. Since we're not launching any new projects at the moment, I don't have much to do besides approving a few documents. Is your request related to a new product? Sarah inquired, curious if Aaron was finally prepared to release a new product. No, it's something else. Although I will be releasing a new product, it will have to wait for a little while as I'm currently focusing on something else, Aaron clarified. Sure, no problem. What will the new product be about? Sarah asked, curious about Aaron's latest idea. She knows that Aaron has a history of coming up with innovative and groundbreaking products, and she is excited to hear what he has in store this time. This time it won't be anything major, just a game, Aaron said, not wanting to keep Sarah in suspense. The reason for Aaron's decision to release a game was to earn more SP and buy a few new knowledges from the system to help him in his plans. While Aaron knew how to game the system, he was also aware that overusing this method would diminish its impact and ultimately reduce the amount of SP he could earn. I'll make sure to inform you ahead of time so you can properly prepare well for its release, Aaron added. Sure. All right. I'll come over to see you sometime this week to have a discussion, Aaron said, indicating that the call was coming to an end. I will be waiting for you then. Sarah replied back. See you. See you. With that, Aaron concluded his phone conversation with Sarah. Following the phone call, Aaron opted to sleep for the remainder of the flight since he had no tasks to attend to. 7 hours later, Aaron could be seen sitting in his basement after he arrived from the airport. Upon arriving from the airport, Aaron did not immediately head to his basement as his younger brother, Henry, wanted to play games with him for a few hours. Eventually, Aaron made his way to the basement where he was seen sitting. After putting on his virtual reality headgear, he said, "Login." Upon entering the virtual reality, Nova greeted him and said, "Welcome back, sir," while dressed in a stunning outfit. "Thanks, you look great," Aaron complimented after taking notice of Nova's attire. "Thank you. What are your plans for the rest of the day before your visit to the company tomorrow?" Nova inquired. "An inspiring idea came to me during the flight. I need to start practicing a few specific runes in order to bring the idea to life," Aaron shared. "What is the inspiration?" Nova inquired, showing her curiosity. Although Nova had the ability to extract information from Aaron's brain data, she refrained from doing so without his consent. Additionally, Aaron's system would block any unauthorized access, so even if Nova attempted to extract information, she would be denied access without Aaron's explicit permission each time. "It's a surprise," Aaron teased, before adding, "I'll also need you to rent a private plane for a 2-month period. I'll be using it to travel extensively around the country and the world to accomplish my plan." Sure. Despite being curious, she didn't ask for further details about his plan. Nova knew that she could make an educated guess about Aaron's plan based on the type of runes he was practicing. Following that, Aaron immediately started practicing his runes for the 5 days, in Universal Simulation Accelerated Time, he had before he visited the company. Aaron didn't need to worry about getting enough sleep because Nova was always in control of the virtual reality headgear. She could adjust the settings to ensure that Aaron's brain entered into deep sleep or REM, rapid eye movement, when necessary, allowing him to rest even while he spent time within the virtual reality world. The next day, Aaron logged out of the virtual reality feeling refreshed. He completed his daily quest before cleaning himself up and preparing for his meeting with Sarah. After double-checking that he was fully prepared, he grabbed his phone and watch and headed where his car, driver, and bodyguard was, ready to take him to the company. "Good morning," Aaron greeted Donald. "Morning," Donald greeted back as he opened the car door for Aaron to get in, and then closed it behind him. He then took a seat in the front of the car before the driver started the engine, and they began their journey to GIA Technology. Rena Rothschild's manor. Rena could be seen sitting inside her office. It has been 3 days since she met and had a talk with Aaron, who had given him Ava, Ava was still decrypting the encrypted backed-up data and still had 4 more days before she completed this process. Despite Ava's ongoing work with decrypting the data, Rena still had plenty to do. Ava was actively intercepting and analyzing all activity on the private network, and whenever she came across something important or useful, she would immediately inform Rena. This allowed Rena to stay up to date with the latest information and adjust her cleanup process accordingly. Her plan continued getting solid the more information and consultation she had from Ava, which resulted in her being very grateful to Aaron, who decided to help her in her darkest times. Although she knew that Aaron had his own agenda for helping her, he didn't even try to hide it. Despite that, she was still thankful to him for the help he provided to her. Gaia Technology HQ. Aaron arrived at the headquarters after a short period, where he was welcomed by Sarah, who was waiting for him after he had informed him that he was on his way. "You came quite early," Sarah said as she hugged Aaron, welcoming him. "I said that I will visit. Isn't it better for me to come earlier than late?" Aaron replied as he hugged her back. "Of course, let's discuss this further in my office," Sarah agreed as she led Aaron towards the elevator. They attracted the attention of some employees as they passed by. Aaron followed silently, as he really wanted to have some privacy when he talked with her. Once they arrived in her office, Sarah offered Aaron some tea, which he accepted without hesitation. "So, you mentioned that you need the law firm to do something for you." Sarah began the conversation after she had signaled for the secretary to bring them tea. "Yes, I have a personal matter that I need their help with. Can you assemble a team from the firm to assist me?" Aaron requested. "What are they going to be doing?" "I ask because I want to ensure that we assemble a team with the right expertise and knowledge for the task at hand," Sarah clarified. She wanted to avoid any misunderstandings and make sure she fully understood the scope of the project before proceeding. "I understand your concern, but there's no need to worry. I simply need them to assist with the purchase of a few companies in Eden," Aaron explained. "Eden? Isn't the government advising against any business dealings in that country due to the sanctions imposed on its dictator? You may be putting yourself at risk by pursuing this," Sarah cautioned, curious as to Aaron's reasoning for choosing to buy companies in a country ruled by a dictator. "I'm aware of the risks, but I believe that money can solve any problem. All we have to do is make the purchases, and I will handle any other issues that may arise," Aaron replied confidently, displaying no signs of concern or fear regarding his decision. "It's your money, so ultimately the decision is up to you on how you choose to spend it. I will form a team and have them contact you for further details soon," Sarah agreed, acknowledging Aaron's decision while also ensuring that she would assemble a team to help with the project. "Thank you." Aaron expressed his gratitude for Sarah's agreement without any further questions. Sarah chose not to ask any more questions, confident that Aaron would provide any necessary explanations when he was ready. Although he had received the answer he came for, Aaron didn't immediately leave. Since he was already there, he decided to spend some time and be briefed on other details and the current happenings within the company. Evening that day. After spending most of the day at the company and being officially introduced to the employees as the real owner, Aaron returned home. The employees were surprised to learn of his ownership and his presence at the company. Despite the initial surprise of discovering Aaron as the true owner of the company, the employees quickly shifted their focus to the exciting news of receiving a bonus at the end of the month. This announcement instantly made Aaron a beloved figure within the company, solidifying his status as the most popular multi-billionaire company owner in the world. After having dinner with his family and spending some time playing games with Henry, Aaron returned to his basement to spend the rest of the night in virtual reality. "Login. Sir, you are trending online." Nova promptly notified him of his sudden popularity on Twitter and various social media platforms. "Why? What did I do to deserve this attention?" Aaron inquired, feeling quite astonished that he had become a topic of discussion on the internet. "Well, one of your employees took a picture of you and posted it online with the caption, 'We finally met our boss,' which caused people to discuss you as a peculiar boss who only just met your employees for the first time since the company's inception. Others were surprised to learn that you are the sole owner of a multi-billion-dollar company that has many investors clamoring for you to take the company public, with the promise of making you incredibly wealthy. Despite this, you have chosen to keep the company private, which has angered some who see a bright future for the company. The reason for your current trend on social media is due to the news about the bonuses being offered to your employees. This news has made many people jealous, as they either aspire to work for your company or resent you for trying to win over your employees by offering bonuses during the month you introduced yourself. Some are even calling you a people pleaser. Your trend on social media has resulted in some individuals releasing your personal information, including the fact that you were expelled for plagiarizing a thesis. This has given ammunition for your haters to use against you and may have affected your newfound popularity with some fans. After hearing the summary, Aaron couldn't help but chuckle at Nova, who was eagerly relaying the information to him. Nova seemed unperturbed by his reaction and continued with her explanation. What's even more amusing is that some of your haters are using a virtual assistant that you created to write their hateful comments about you, all while using a Gaia OS to do so. Nova couldn't help but chuckle at the sheer foolishness of their actions, which made Aaron happy that Nova was even more enthusiastic about the topics surrounding him than he was himself. Your account is experiencing a significant surge in followers and has even been officially verified, Nova reported. My account? But I distinctly remember abandoning it. Why would they even bother verifying it? Aaron asked, sounding quite puzzled. Since I have access to your memories, so I also have your passwords. That's how I was able to take control of the account, Nova explained herself. Ah, I see, Aaron replied, sounding impressed. But why did you do it? He asked, still curious about the reason behind Nova's actions. I did it as a way for you to have a direct line to the public and to prevent misinformation in case someone tries to impersonate you and mislead others. Nova explained her reasoning for taking over his accounts. Ah, I see. Thanks, Aaron said, appreciating Nova's foresight. He had been so focused on other matters that he hadn't even considered these potential issues. Aaron was reminded of the benefits of having a powerful AI assistant like Nova. With her vast knowledge and ability to process information objectively, she could provide him with a comprehensive overview of any topic, immunizing her from any biases or prejudices. Nova said, "You're welcome," feeling quite happy. Despite performing her duties by her own volition, Nova always felt a sense of joy and fulfillment whenever Aaron expressed his gratitude towards her. Anyway, since you are already doing it, continue keeping an eye on them and let me know if anything interesting happens, Aaron instructed Nova before he resumed his runic practice. He knew that he needed to master a few more runes before he could execute his plan and make use of his private jet which Nova had already rented for him. Next day, in the morning as he was doing his daily quest which had become a habit for him, and he was not doing it to just complete the quest, he received a phone call. He paused his activity and retrieved his phone to discover that his friend Felix was on the other end of the line. Without hesitation, he answered the call. After placing the phone to his ear, he greeted Felix with a simple hello. "How are you doing?" inquired Felix, addressing Aaron. "I'm doing well. How about yourself?" replied Aaron. "I'm doing good too," echoed Felix. "Why did you call me?" Aaron inquired immediately after their exchange of greetings. "What? Am I not allowed to call my friend anymore?" Felix asked, feigning offense at Aaron's question. "Don't play dumb. You know exactly why I asked. Why are you calling me in the morning when you're supposed to be at work? Do you want me to report you to Sarah?" Aaron teased Felix, with a hint of humor in his tone. "I am working right now, actually. Sarah selected me as the team leader for the group that you expressed interest in. I called to inquire about your availability so I can come over and discuss the task you have for us," replied Felix, sounding proud of his newly assigned leadership role. "Why you?" Aaron retorted, abruptly interrupting Felix and reversing the positive momentum he had just established. After all, what are friends for if not to humble and challenge each other? "She mentioned that I was selected as the team leader in part because you needed someone you could trust for this," replied Felix, affecting a tone of defeat. "You can come visit me this afternoon. I have some free time then," offered Aaron, deciding to spare Felix any further teasing. "Great, I will be visiting you together with the assistant project manager," Felix informed Aaron, whom he will be attending the meeting with at Aaron's house. "Sounds good. Just give me a call when you're on your way, and I'll make sure to prepare for your arrival," replied Aaron. "Sure, I will do that. See you later then." "All right, I'll talk to you soon." "See you later," replied Felix, bidding farewell and hanging up the phone. With the call now over, Aaron returned his attention to finishing his daily quest, putting his phone away and focusing on the task at hand. Later that afternoon, "Welcome," greeted Aaron as Felix and his assistant team leader Barry arrived at his house. He led them inside and then guided them to his workroom, which had been empty for the past few months as he had moved most of his work to the basement. "Thanks," replied both Felix and Barry as they followed behind Aaron, taking in the beautiful surroundings of his home with admiration. "Make yourselves feel at home," said Aaron to Felix and Barry before he left the room to go and get them some drinks, knowing that their meeting was likely to take some time. As soon as Aaron left, Barry remarked, "Wow, this house is beautiful," making sure they were alone before speaking. "Yeah, I agree," Felix replied. He had never had the chance to visit Aaron's house before, as they usually met in a cafe or somewhere more central for both of them. "How much do you think this house costs?" Barry asked, realizing that Felix was also impressed by the house. "I think it's around $2.5 million or more," Felix replied, not wanting to reveal an exact figure. He knew that if his colleagues found out he was friends with Aaron, it could potentially make his work more difficult, with people trying to get on his good side. "Damn, but still it is worth it." Barry was very surprised when he heard the approximate price of the house. "Yeah, definitely worth it," Felix replied, nodding in agreement. But just as he was about to ask another question, Aaron returned to the room, carrying a drink for each of them to sip during the meeting. After giving everyone their drink, they engaged in small talk to get to know each other better before getting down to business. "So, now let's talk about what I want your team to do for me," Aaron said, as he opened the drawer on his desk, removing 2 small stacks of paper, each with about 40 pages, and handed them to both Felix and Barry. As soon as they got the papers, they began reading through them carefully, taking note of any important details or instructions that Aaron had included. During the time that Felix and Barry were reading the stacks of paper, Aaron patiently waited for them to finish. He knew that it was important for them to thoroughly understand the contents of the documents before they could have a productive conversation about the details. After about half an hour, both Felix and Barry lifted their heads, indicating that they were done reading and were impressed with the report they had just read. "You really want us to do this?" Felix asked, expressing his surprise at what he had just read in the report. "Yes, I want everything in the document to be purchased within 3 months. Money is not an issue. Do you think you can handle it?" Aaron asked seriously, his expression and tone leaving no doubt that he was serious and not joking around. "Yes, we can do that. But for us to complete this plan within the given period of time, our team capacity needs to at least double," Barry said after thinking about what he had read for a short period of time. "Consider that done," Aaron agreed to Barry's suggestion without even asking for the reason. "Also, we will have to pay a quite sum of bribe money to the dictator for everything to go smoothly," Felix added, wanting to know what was Aaron's standing when it comes to it. "I understand that, and I have already set aside a budget for it. Just make sure everything goes as planned," Aaron said, giving his approval for the necessary arrangements to be made. Also, both Felix and Barry continued to make their demands and suggestions while Aaron either agreed to them or proposed alternative solutions that he had come up with Nova when he was constructing the plans. The back-and-forth discussion continued for about 4 hours, during which Felix and Barry asked important questions and explored different courses of action with Aaron before making a final decision. "You can call me anytime if you face any problems while executing the plan. I will try to come up with a solution as soon as you inform me," Aaron assured them before they left the meeting. "Farewell, see you soon," Felix and Barry said as were escorted by Aaron to where they parked their vehicle before they got in it and left. Inside Felix's car. "Holy shit, what on earth is he planning?" Barry asked as soon as he was sure that they were a safe distance away from Aaron's house. Felix attempted to divert the conversation from the subject, stating, "I am unsure, but we shouldn't dwell on it. Our primary focus should be on completing the task with utmost efficiency." However, his mind was troubled with intricate thoughts, which he chose not to voice out. Felix had only managed to grasp the basic idea of the plan. Aaron had informed them that he would be sharing a comprehensive report consisting of around 400 pages to assist them in their strategizing. The objective of this plan was to establish a monopoly in a particular sector of Eden, thereby ensuring that no competitors remained in that specific sector. The first step of the revised plan required meeting the country's dictator and offering him a bribe. The team anticipated a positive response to the bribe since the country's economy had been severely impacted by sanctions. The dictator was likely rationing his resources to avoid provoking citizen unrest, which could potentially lead to a revolt. Once the team had successfully won the favor of the dictator, the plan would officially commence. Under the pretext of modernizing the telecommunications industry and increasing internet usage to generate a return on their investment, the team would initiate discussions with the dictator about acquiring several telecommunication companies. The team was confident that their bribe would secure the dictator's approval, especially since they planned to entice him with the potential tax revenue that would be generated from the growth of the industry. With the dictator's blessing, the team would launch an aggressive takeover of all the telecommunication companies, consolidating them into a single monopoly. At this point, the team would have successfully completed the first phase of Aaron's report. The total cost for bribery and acquiring the telecommunication companies was estimated to be around $213 million. Despite the discussions they had with Aaron, Felix knew that this was only the beginning and that the first phase was merely a small component of his grand plan. The realization that his friend was attempting something deeply sinister sent chills down Felix's spine. 3 days later, Rena Rothschild's mansion. Rena arrived at her workroom earlier than she typically did, as today marked the final day for Ava to finally complete the task of decrypting and analyzing the encrypted data that had been backed up. "Ava, is it done?" she asked, as she was eager to find out the identity of the person who had betrayed her and start the process of cleaning up. "A few more hours, Rena," Ava replied back softly while showing a makeshift progress bar on her computer screen to indicate the expected completion time and ease Rena's anxiety. "Okay," Rena said, as she sat down on her chair, her eyes glued to the screen, waiting for the completion of the task. She felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness, hoping that everything would go as planned and they could access the crucial data she needed. "So, you guys are leaving for Eden today?" Aaron asked Felix, who was on the other end of the phone. "Yes," Felix explained his reasoning over the phone to Aaron. "We need to leave today to make it in time for the dictator's party. That way, we can get close enough to him to start a conversation. Hopefully, we can set up a meeting with him after that." "Sure, just do your thing," Aaron said before wishing Felix a safe journey, bidding him farewell and ending the conversation. "The plan officially starts," Nova said through the phone speakers. "Yeah, right to inform Alexander that the plan has officially started," Aaron said to Nova, as he nodded in agreement to what she said. "Okay." Nova immediately sent a message to the now highly encrypted personal phone, courtesy of Nova. "The plan has officially started. A seed of hope that we have planted. With purpose and passion, we embark on a journey that's bright and stark." When Aaron saw the message Nova sent, he couldn't help but ask her, "Why send it like that?" as he turned and looked at the camera on his phone. "I wanted it to be something uplifting," Nova answered without a shred of embarrassment. "Anyway, let's start our plan as we wait for Felix's team to complete Phase 1, Aaron said, giving up on asking any further questions about the topic. "Let me notify the pilot to commence with the preparations. May I ask where we are headed?" Nova inquired with a curiosity to determine the starting point of their plan. "London," Aaron answered. Upon speaking those words, Aaron walked towards the table where his virtual reality helmet lay. He gingerly lifted it and placed it inside a specially marked container, where he then inscribed a protection rune on it. To ensure its continued remaining active, he continuously infused mana into the rune. Finally, he picked up the container and exited the basement. After 20 days of training within the accelerated universe, Aaron finally made the decision to put his plan into action. A few days ago, within the accelerated universe's simulated time, Aaron could be seen activating a rune that he had been training to reduce its activation time. He had finally succeeded in reducing its activation time to an instant. After successfully activating the rune, Aaron deactivated it and got up from his seated position. "Nova, it's time for us to conduct some investigation," Aaron exclaimed with excitement as he began rubbing his hands together. "Always ready, sir," Nova replied promptly, teleporting to Aaron to save a few seconds that would have been spent walking over from where she was previously sitting watching over him. "Good. Now, compile a list of individuals who possess exceptional expertise in their respective fields. List every detail that you can gather, Aaron instructed. Upon receiving the order, Nova wasted no time and immediately put all of her idle computing power to work in order to fulfill the request. In less than a second, profiles of individuals, their respective fields of expertise, and their other information began materializing and hovering before them. The profiles were multiplying at such a rapid pace that they soon spread out over kilometers, covering the vast expanse of their field of vision. Nova did not stop at that, and the hovering profiles continued to increase as she relentlessly scoured the internet for more individuals, leaving no stone unturned. Nova didn't simply rely on people's self-proclaimed expertise, but also thoroughly investigated each candidate to ensure their legitimacy. As she approved those who met her stringent criteria, she simultaneously removed any individuals she discovered to be scammers. However, since Aaron's request was for experts from every field, Nova had to devise unique vetting criteria for each field to determine whether a candidate was indeed an expert. For instance, if someone claimed to be a quantum engineering expert, Nova would conduct a thorough background check on the candidate, starting with the company they currently work for or previously worked at. She would then meticulously examine every thesis that mentioned the candidate's name and review all the projects they participated in, taking note of their level of contribution before considering them for the final list that she would present to Aaron. This rigorous evaluation process was only for candidates in scientific fields. Moreover, since Aaron did not specify a limit on the number of experts needed for each field, Nova had to perform the same vetting process repeatedly for each field she searched through. Aaron couldn't help but feel completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of profiles presented to him by Nova. The number of profiles continued to increase the longer the time passed, as Nova was overclocking the shit out of the quantum computer. The list: Physics. Lisa Randall, Particle Physics and Cosmology, United States, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Brian Greene, String Theory and Quantum Gravity, United States, New York, New York. John Ellis, High Energy Physics and Particle Astrophysics, United Kingdom, London. Frank Wilczek, Theoretical Physics and Quantum Field Theory, United States, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Kip Thorne, Gravitational Wave. Architecture. Norman Foster, Sustainable Architecture and High-Tech Design, United Kingdom, London. Zaha Hadid, Parametricism and Deconstructivism, United Kingdom, London. Frank Gehry, Deconstructivism and Sculptural Design, United States, Los Angeles, California. Renzo Piano, Sustainable Design and Technology Integration, Italy, Genoa. Jean Nouvel, Contextual Design and Postmodernism, France, Paris. Jark Ingels, Contextual Design and Urban Planning, Denmark, Copenhagen. Peter Zumthor, Minimalism and Materiality, Switzerland, Haldenstein. So Fujimoto, Organic Design and Spatial Concepts, Japan, Tokyo. Chemistry, biology, engineering, computing, encryption, music, director, leadership, hentai, porn, murders, racist, 4chan. List the people you think are experts in the above fields above and other fields. The list continued, to infinity and beyond. When Aaron started reading through the list, he was pretty surprised that Nova really included every list she could come up with. Why did you consider Mia Khalifa an expert in the field despite her retirement a few weeks ago? Aaron asked as he was puzzled when he saw Mia Khalifa's profile listed as an expert in the field, despite her having retired from it just a few weeks prior and having worked in it for less than 6 months, based on what was written on the profile. Well, even though Mia Khalifa worked in the industry for a relatively short period of time, she had a significant impact on the industry during that time. While my initial criteria for this field is based on the number of movies and categories a person has participated in, I made an exception for her due to her rapid rise in fame and recognition in the industry. Nova explained her reasoning for including Mia Khalifa in the list of experts for the porn category. Upon reading several individuals' profiles on the list, he ultimately deduced that it would take him a couple of months to thoroughly read every profile in its entirety. Therefore, he resolved to simplify the list, but for that, He had to wait for Nova to complete the list, which continued to expand during the half hour that he spent reading through some of the profiles. He patiently waited and waited, but time seemed to pass sluggishly, and before he knew it, an hour had elapsed, followed by 2, and then 3. Realizing that it would take longer than anticipated, he resolved to utilize his time productively and resumed practicing his runes to prevent wasting his time idly. A few hours later, still going. One day later, finally it was done. "Sir, the list is now complete," Nova informed Aaron, who had just finished activating a rune. "Why did it take that long?" Aaron asked, as he was quite surprised that it took that long despite her using a quantum computer for the task. "Sir, you may have forgotten that you are currently inside the accelerated simulation universe," Nova reminded Aaron, who had been spending an increasing amount of time within it, gradually becoming acclimated to the accelerated time as if it were normal, as he could feel no discernible difference. "Ah." Aaron smacked his forehead in realization after being reminded by Nova. "So, how many hours did it take?" Aaron inquired. "It took precisely 6 real-time hours, which translates to 30 accelerated hours," Nova answered precisely. "How many people are on the list?" Aaron queried, gesturing toward a swath of profiles that blanketed one side of the sky. 127,754,420. Nova responded without any hesitation or equivocation. "Holy shit!" Aaron exclaimed, dumbfounded upon hearing the staggering number. This number was after going through my very stringent criterias and several filtrations. Nova clarified that the number was the result of going through her exceedingly stringent criteria and multiple filtering processes, implying that there were more individuals, but they did not meet her rigorous standards. "All right, let's begin by narrowing down the pool," Aaron declared as he brought up the categories. However, upon setting his eyes on the categories, he became frustrated and exclaimed, "Screw it." Aaron then turned to Nova, pointing to his head, and said, "Access my brain data and examine what I intended to achieve by telling you to do this task. Wasn't it meant to be a surprise for me?" Nova teased Aaron as she complied with his request. Aaron faced Nova before responding, "You have probably deduced what it is from my recent activities over the past few days." Aaron then clicked the approve button that had been sent to him by his system, which asked him to confirm whether he genuinely agreed to grant access to his brain data. Once Nova received the data from Aaron's brain, she quickly identified his objectives for the task at hand, and promptly began narrowing down the profiles that were blanketing the sky. The profile list continued to decrease until it reached a size where Aaron could see the entirety of the profiles despite them still covering a large portion of the sky. "Now, group them into their respective fields," Aaron said, wanting to simplify the process even further. After grouping the profiles according to their respective fields, Aaron began examining each list one by one, eliminating some individuals from each of them. After an hour of scrutinizing, Aaron had eliminated all the profiles he deemed unnecessary, leaving only 5,000 individuals who were deemed important enough to warrant his attention for his upcoming plan. Aaron had narrowed down the selection to only a few specific fields, and they were deemed experts in their respective fields, out of the million possibilities that Nova had initially presented. The remaining profiles consisted of the names of experts from the fields of architecture, physics, chemistry, engineering, math, design, law, agriculture and food science, finance, and a few other important fields within those categories. "Categorize them based on the country of residence," Aaron ordered after finalizing his selection of who to keep on the list. "Yes, sir." Nova immediately sorted the list based on the countries where the experts lived. So, individuals like Zaha Hadid and Stephen Hawking were placed on the list of people living in the United Kingdom, while people like Frank Wilczek were included in the list of people living in America. After the categorization was completed, there were over 45 countries represented on the list. Upon seeing the number of countries he would have to visit, Aaron began to feel exhausted before even embarking on the journey. Now back to the present. Aaron could be seen driving alone in the car together with the box that still had the rune active due to him, still providing mana to it on the passenger seat heading to the airport, where the private plane was already waiting to take him to the United Kingdom so that he can begin his plan. Aaron could be seen driving alone in his car with the box containing the VR headgear, still protected by the active rune that he had to continuously provide mana to remain active, on the passenger seat. He was heading to the airport where the private plane was waiting to take him to the United Kingdom. Aaron chose to travel alone for this mission because he didn't want anyone accompanying him during the execution of his plan. He knew he would be traveling frequently in the upcoming months, so he didn't want to burden Daniel and the other bodyguards unnecessarily. With his current abilities, he was confident that he could protect himself from practically anything on Earth. 12 hours later, Aaron gazed out the window as the private jet approached London Luton Airport after a grueling 12-hour flight from the United States. After the plane landed, Aaron bid farewell to the pilot and informed him that he would be staying in the UK for about a week. He then went through the necessary procedures with airport security before leaving the airport in a taxi. After enduring about 15 minutes of traffic, Aaron finally arrived at his destination and promptly checked into a presidential suite at the Icon Hotel. After completing the check-in procedures, a hotel worker escorted Aaron to his suite. Aaron didn't object to the worker carrying his specialized box as he was confident that the rune would protect it from any harm. When he entered the suite, he immediately went to the bedroom and slept. He had been feeling jet-lagged after the 12-hour flight, and this was the first time he had slept without logging in the VR in more than a month. 4 hours later, after sleeping for a while, Aaron finally woke up and checked his phone. He realized that he had slept for about 4 hours, as the clock on his phone showed that it was almost midnight, with 2 hours left before it struck 12. So, he woke up and sat on the edge of the bed for a few minutes to collect himself. He then picked up the hotel phone and called the reception. "Hello, sir. How may I assist you?" A female voice on the other end of the line immediately greeted Aaron after answering the call. "Does the hotel provide rental car services?" Aaron asked, wondering if the hotel had cars available for rent or if he would have to take a taxi to his destination. "Yes, sir. We do provide private rental cars and chauffeur services for our presidential suite guests," the lady on the phone replied politely. When Aaron heard the reply, he was quite delighted by the news. "Can I request for a rental car? I have some work to attend to. When can it be made available?" Aaron asked the receptionist after learning that the hotel offers such service for their presidential suite guests. "Sir, our team can prepare it within 10 minutes of receiving the notice," responded the receptionist with a courteous tone. "Great. Please have it ready as I'll be coming down within the next half hour," stated Aaron while specifying the exact time he would arrive. This allowed the hotel staff to ensure that everything was prepared and ready by the time he arrived. "Certainly, sir," replied the woman with her usual polite tone. "Thank you." Aaron expressed his gratitude to the woman for her assistance before ending the call. Following the call, Aaron quickly made his way to the bathroom to freshen up before putting his plan into action. After freshening up and changing his clothes, Aaron made his way down to the lobby with his box in hand. As he arrived, he was greeted by a hotel worker who had been waiting for him. The worker politely offered to escort him to the waiting car that had been arranged to take him to his desired destination. Aaron agreed, remembering her voice from the call they had just a few minutes ago. Upon arriving at where the car was, Aaron thanked the hotel worker once again and handed her a generous tip of $1,000 for her help before boarding the waiting car that had been arranged for him. The driver glanced at Aaron through the rearview mirror and asked, "Where to, sir?" as they began the journey. Aaron promptly replied, "Cambridge." The driver acknowledged the response and continued driving towards the requested location. 1 hour later, it took them nearly an hour to travel from their hotel to the city of Cambridge, and they arrived there with just 30 minutes to spare before midnight. Upon arrival in the city, Aaron directed the driver to drop him off at the University Arms Hotel, which was conveniently located in close proximity to both Cambridge University and the surrounding community. "We have arrived, sir," the driver informed him. "Thank you. And please find a place to rest as I won't be returning until morning before we head back," Aaron said, as he handed the driver $1,000 to spend for his rest during the waiting period. After getting out of the car, he promptly started walking towards the community located outside the University of Cambridge. As Aaron approached the community, he looked for a secluded location, and the moment he discovered one, he immediately entered. Upon entering the secluded spot, Aaron uttered the word stealth, activating a rune of concealment that rendered him invisible to anyone who was not skilled in the art of magic. Once he was confident that the rune had taken effect, Aaron left the secluded spot and seamlessly entered the housing community without being detected, despite walking through the streets. The walk did not take long, and before he knew it, Aaron had arrived at his destination, the house of Stephen Hawking. Aaron took a moment to survey his surroundings before proceeding with his plan. He knew that he needed to ensure that there were no witnesses to what was about to happen, as he intended to enter through the door without alerting anyone. With the concern of someone looking to his side out of the way, Aaron approached the door and rang the doorbell, just like any other guest would. However, he was no ordinary guest. He was an invisible guest. Ding! Ding! After waiting for approximately 3 minutes, the housemaid finally arrived at the door and opened it. Upon opening the door, she looked around to see who had rung the bell and saw nothing despite him standing before her, but she could not see anyone as Aaron was concealed by the stealth rune. As the maid was about to close the door and return to her room, Aaron extended his hand and touched her head, immediately casting a sleeping rune before she could even react. As she began to fall, Aaron quickly caught her and carried her inside the house before closing the door behind him. In just a matter of moments, he had successfully entered the house undetected. After carefully placing the maid on the living room sofa, Aaron retrieved a helmet from the box he was carrying and placed it on her head. He then said, "Nova, it's time for you to shine." "Roger that, sir," replied Nova, as she immediately activated the virtual reality helmet and began downloading her brain data. After analyzing her memories, she searched for the location where Professor Stephen was sleeping. "It's done, sir," Nova informed Aaron before turning on the phone and displaying a map of the house, which was made from the housemaid's memories. The map showed him the way to Professor Stephen Hawking's room. After removing the helmet from the maid, Aaron stood up and headed directly to the room where Stephen Hawking was staying, following the directions shown on the phone. As he entered the room, he found Stephen Hawking sleeping peacefully on his bed, with his wheelchair parked beside it. Aaron took a moment to observe Stephen sleeping peacefully in his bed, before repeating the same process he did with the maid. He cast a sleeping rune on Stephen to ensure that he remained asleep no matter what happened, and then he placed the virtual reality helmet on Stephen's head. This time, Nova didn't require any instructions from Aaron as he had already put the helmet on Stephen Hawking, and the cameras inside the room allowed Nova to see what was happening. She immediately activated the helmet and downloaded Stephen Hawking's brain map. "Done," Nova informed Aaron as soon as she completed the process. When Aaron received the confirmation that the process was complete, he removed the helmet from Stephen Hawking and carefully placed him back in the same position he found him in. After securing the helmet, Aaron left the room and quietly closed the door behind him, leaving no evidence of his entry. As Aaron made his way out of the house, he passed the living room and saw the maid still sleeping on the sofa. He suddenly remembered that he needed to move her room to prevent her from becoming suspicious or paranoid. He set the box containing the virtual reality headgear aside and lifted the maid, guided by Nova, who knew where she had been sleeping before opening the door. He carried her back to her room and laid her down on the bed, making sure she was comfortable before quietly leaving the room and closing the door behind him. Aaron left the house without any worries about leaving behind any physical or digital traces. He had already taken care of the physical evidence by putting the maid back in her room and leaving her sleeping peacefully. As for the digital evidence, Nova had used the memories she had collected from both Hawking and the maid to fabricate a perfect replacement using previous footage in the system with some small edits. This ensured that there would be no signs of a break-in or any suspicious activity in the security cameras. After leaving the house and closing the door, Aaron breathed a sigh of relief that nothing had gone wrong during his mission. Once he composed himself, Aaron picked up his box and made his way to another house in the same community, as he had other objectives beyond Stephen Hawking. Aaron had a busy schedule ahead of him, with several houses to visit and repeat the same process he had done in Professor Hawking's house in about 15 other houses he planned to visit, including that of Professor Peter Wothiers, a renowned chemist, Professor David McKay, Professor Sir Stephen Orahilly, clinical biochemistry and medicine, and Professor Sir Tom Blundell, structural biologist, among the many. As he continued executing his plan, something important was occurring elsewhere.
Eden.
Felix woke up with a headache from having consumed too much alcohol at yesterday's party. Despite his splitting headache, Felix felt satisfied with himself for managing to set up a meeting with the dictator scheduled for next week. So, he decided to hold off on calling Aaron to share the news, as he was aware of the time difference between their locations. He figured he would have plenty of time to inform Aaron later and begin planning for the meeting with the dictator. But the throbbing headache from the hangover kept interrupting his happiness. He got up and went to the bathroom to freshen up and prepare for the meeting they were going to have at noon. They planned to discuss their approach towards negotiating with the dictator in their upcoming meeting. Fortunately, there was no need to start the investigation into the dictator at the moment since Aaron had already provided them with all the necessary information. They only needed to reach a consensus on the approach to make their task more manageable. The meeting. So, what approach should we take during the meeting? Felix asked, looking at Barry and the other team members in the meeting room they had booked at the hotel. I suggest we offer him the bribe money up front and directly state our needs, said the rookie team member, who was there to gain experience and may have made a naive suggestion. When Felix heard the rookie's proposal, he didn't get angry, but decided to explain why it was a bad idea. If we offer the bribe money up front, the dictator will become even greedier since we've paid before receiving what we came for. It's like giving a chef all the ingredients and payment for a meal before they've even cooked it. They might end up giving you a mediocre dish because they know they've already been paid. He explained calmly, making sure the rookie understands where he made the mistake and doesn't repeat it again. When Felix finished explaining the flaw in the rookie's idea, the room fell silent and the rookie realized he had nothing else to contribute. He decided to sit back and listen to the rest of the meeting, like a passenger in a car being driven by an experienced driver. One option could be giving it to him in installments, suggested one of the team members. Agreed. We could use that approach. It will not only keep us in the dictator's good graces, but also motivate him to expedite our acquisition by wanting more payments. This seems like the best option, said Felix, nodding in approval. So, are we planning to inform him that for every telecommunication company we acquire, we'll be giving him $5 million in installments? By the end of the process, we would have spent a total of $30 million in bribes, including the initial $10 million we plan to offer at the meeting next week, Barry asked Felix, seeking his opinion. Yes, that should work. There are only 4 telecommunication companies in the country, Felix agreed. Now, let's discuss the approach for bringing up the matter without upsetting him. We need to be precise and careful in our wording throughout the entire meeting, Felix suggested. Agreed, Barry said. We don't want to come across as pushy or threatening. Perhaps we can start by expressing our admiration for the dictator's leadership and the strides he's made in developing the country's infrastructure. That's a good suggestion, but we need to be careful with our words. The dictator has done very little for the country, so he might think we are being sarcastic and trying to mock him. Felix cautioned against using that compliment. And thus they began to brainstorm for their approach during the meeting. While all of this was happening, Nova was monitoring their conversation through their phones and taking notes on everything that was being said. She planned to report back to Aaron once he was finished with his current task. After spending more than 4 hours collecting brain data from various households in Cambridge City communities, Aaron had finally finished all the people who were on the list. Although Aaron's brain data collection task had been going smoothly, there was one instance where he entered a household and discovered the individual he was meant to collect data from engaged in sexual activity with their spouse. As a result, he had to postpone the data collection for this particular household and move them to the end of his list. Upon returning to the household half an hour later, Aaron was surprised to find the professor still engaged in the activity. Despite feeling proud of the man's stamina, Aaron had no choice but to wait for him to finish, since he was the only person remaining on the list for Aaron to collect brain data from in the Cambridge community. During that period, Nova kept him company. Sir, Felix's plan has gone successful. Nova informed Aaron about the ongoing events on Felix's side. So, when did they manage to set up a meeting with the dictator? Aaron asked Nova, curious about the schedule and how much time the team had to prepare for the meeting. They have a week to prepare, Nova replied, not only answering Aaron's question but also answering the underlying meaning behind it. Have they already come up with a plan? Aaron asked Nova, his curiosity piqued about what kind of plan Felix's team had devised. They are currently working on the plan, Nova informed him. Afterward, they continued to engage in small talk about various topics for about 20 minutes until the professor finally finished. This gave Aaron a brief window of time, during which the man's wife went to the bathroom, allowing Aaron to complete the collection of the brain data, which only took a few seconds for the initial reading. As Aaron finished collecting the brain data and was leaving the house, the professor's wife returned, drying herself off with a towel while saying, "You're not tired, are you? We have 3 more rounds to go." Passing right beside Aaron, who was holding his breath, even though he knew he was invisible to her. "Honey? Honey?" The professor's wife called out when she didn't receive a reply from him. What's wrong with him? He usually doesn't get tired unless he goes for a few more hours. The professor's wife wondered aloud as she covered her husband with a blanket. She noticed that he was sleeping like a baby. "Ha?" Aaron breathed a sigh of relief as he successfully left the house without encountering any problems. "I wish you all the best," Aaron said, looking back at the house before turning to make his way back to the hotel. He knew that his driver and rental car would be waiting for him there, ready to take him back to the hotel. How many people in the UK still need their brain data collected? Aaron asked Nova as he walked back to the hotel. 754 people, Nova answered, making Aaron want to jump from a bridge when he was reminded that he needed to repeat this for a few hundred times just in the UK alone. After walking for some time, Aaron finally returned to the University Arms Hotel. That's when he realized that he had told his driver he wouldn't return until morning, so he decided to check in for the 3 hours he had to wait. After completing the check-in process, he headed to his booked room. Once inside, he took off his coat and laid down on the bed before falling asleep. Rena Rothschild Manor. Rena could be seen sitting in her workroom, engrossed in reading a document on her computer while Ava presented her findings on the decrypted and analyzed backed-up data. Rena had been listening to Ava's presentation since yesterday, as it was a lengthy one due to the extensive amount of data they had to go through. However, despite the long duration, Rena did not feel tired at all because everything she was learning from Ava was valuable. With the information she had now gained, Rena now had significant leverage over almost everyone in the family. Despite having a wealth of leverage over almost everyone in the family, Rena didn't rush to take any action. She wanted to wait until she had heard everything from Ava, knowing that if Ava had made the presentation so long, it must mean that every piece of information was crucial. So she continued to listen carefully and take notes, waiting for the right moment to make her move. As Ava presented, Rena took notes and asked questions to clarify anything that wasn't clear. Rena sat there, absorbing all the information that Ava presented, until finally, at noon, with that, "You are updated on everything I considered important from the analyzed data." With those words, Ava finished her presentation. After listening to the entirety of the presentation, she decided to finally start taking action. She pressed the intercom button and called for her secretary, Chloe, who she knew was one of the only few people within the family who were clean. "Yes, miss," Chloe said after entering her office. "Call Terry. Tell him I have something to talk about with him." She told his secretary to call for her head of security, the first betrayer she had to deal with. Yes, Chloe immediately left to go and call for Terry. As she waited for Terry to come, she took another look at the leverage she had of Terry to ensure that their meeting didn't go differently from how she envisioned.